Okay, I'm here with the very courageous Morgan Stewart from ACE. That's the anti. So what is ACE actually? Antidepressant Coalition for Education. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, and really, ACE is incredibly important because it's raising awareness about protracted withdrawal. And for those of you who may not be familiar, there is a group of people who, when they come off antidepressants, they are hurt. They develop neurological damage, and it can sometimes go on for years or longer. It's a very serious condition. It's not currently in the drug labels, and that's what Morgan Stewart has been doing. Over the last year, she has been putting together a citizens petition, which she has now submitted to the FDA, and it has been calling for what I think is really hundreds of thousands of people who have been hurt to actually share their story with the FDA so we can update the labels. And it means a couple things that are really important. One, it means that doctors are going to be warned about this risk so they can tell their patients, but it's also going to help with malpractice. And a really sad part about what kind of happens in this world is that sometimes you need lawsuits to really make things change. And we saw this in the benzo space. When we got protracted withdrawal in the label, we started to get some decent settlements for it. And then lawyers went around to places like big hospitals and institutions, and they made all of the doctors do training. And so that's kind of how things happen. And so this is why this is super important. If you haven't already submitted your report to the FDA, the link is going to be right below this video, and do it now. Gosh, we have like another month to get these in. And so you have to send them in right now because we're just about to get the response from the FDA about this. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Morgan Stewart. Morgan, I would like you to take 10 minutes or so to just tell the audience what happened to you, just high level, what you went through with your own withdrawal. And then I'm going to talk a bit more about ACE after that.
Cool. Thank you so much, Josef. I was, like so many others, prescribed antidepressants for situational depression when I was about 26. There was a family member became very sick. It was a really sad situation for all of us. And I was prescribed an SSRI. And I just kind of stayed on the antidepressant for about 9 years. No prescriber ever asked me if I wanted to come off. And I think I just kind of, from our culture, got the message that some people just needed to be on medications for life.
So Morgan, at what point did you realize that you wanted to come off the medications?
Well, I was teaching, and teaching is a really stressful job. And I remember having this moment after school with a couple of other teachers, and one had gotten off her antidepressant. And because of these standardized testing that was coming up, she was really stressed, and she talked about wanting to get back on her antidepressant. And then another talked about wanting to up her dose. And I think I had this realization in that moment that we're just kind of medicating ourselves to tolerate these like intolerable situations. Mm-hmm. So I quit teaching and decided to get off my antidepressant.
And what was that experience like for you coming off? Like, did you have much guidance on how to do it? And then like, what was the whole withdrawal like as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think I got the same guidance that a lot of people get from their prescribers. I was told to cut my dose in half, cut it in half again, and then to be done. And I was told that since I was on the lowest therapeutic dose of sertraline, which is generic for Zoloft, that I didn't even actually have to taper it, that I could just stop. But, to be safe, I could taper for a couple of weeks. I intuitively felt like that was too quick. So I think I cut it in half and stayed there for 2 weeks, and then cut it in half again for another 2 weeks. And I thought, well, I'm safe. I did it longer than my prescriber even suggested. And yeah, so that's how that's the suggestion I was given. And that's how I tapered, which I now know.
Which many people will know that's insanely fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I consider a very fast taper anything under 2 months. And so
Yeah.
the fact that you did it in 4 weeks, that's like ultra super mega fast.
Right.
And I think most people who have been on the drugs for years or sometimes like a decade or more, like it's usually like for many people can take them like a year to come off, sometimes even longer than that. And so just for the brain to readapt. Okay, so you do this really, really fast taper. What happens next?
Well, when I cut my dose in half, I entered withdrawal, but I didn't realize it was withdrawal, and neither did my prescriber. I thought I had some mysterious disease. I thought I had MS. I thought I had ALS. And, but I developed tinnitus. I developed tachycardia. I developed POTS-like symptoms. I developed vesiculations up and down my body. I'd have entire muscles just kind of, contracting. And so, I got a referral to a cardiologist and an ENT, but my doctor was just as, baffled by all of these symptoms as I was. But I think ultimately my doctor decided I was a hypochondriac and just thought I was mentally ill, especially when I entered acute. I had what's called late onset withdrawal. So my acute didn't happen until about 3 months off. And it was an immediate emergency. It was immediate crisis. I developed akathisia. I had violent, intrusive, looping thoughts I had never experienced prior to the medication or on the medication, of hurting my then 2-year-old daughter, of hurting myself. And so I was terrified. And I admitted myself to a psychiatric hospital, where I was then put on, other medications. But yeah, so, just very much a typical story in this space. But I consider myself lucky. The silver lining, I think, is I figured it out. So I wasn't convinced that. I think a lot of people end up getting back on the medications, or they're polypharmacied and they never figure it out, and they may take their lives. Or
one of the things that's come into my mind when you're sharing this is just how confusing it is for someone 3 months after they come off the medication to be thrust into a world of severe anxiety, intrusive, dark thoughts, alien type thoughts, and then also to feel like you need to pace around the place because you're so uncomfortable. And the reason I highlight that is because this needs to be in drug labels. Like, for some reason, you knew what was going on, but the majority of people I talk to, they get nuked with drugs at this point. I mean, they get, they're back on their antidepressant, they're on an antipsychotic, throw in a benzodiazepine as well. This delayed hit it's hardly recognized. And so if you're listening to this and you're going to put in a report, if that happened to you, you have to describe that in your report, because that's the type of texture and detail that the FDA needs to know about. So anyway, sorry for jumping in and cutting you off, because I just think that's a really important point.
Yeah. It's such a bizarre phenomenon that happens with these drugs, and I do think they're unique to these drugs. But yeah, so. And I do think that made it more confusing for me, because it wasn't like this immediate cause and effect in my head of I quit my antidepressant and then the next day this thing happened. But thankfully for, the support forums and the many resources we have online, I think it was one of Medicating Normal's videos on YouTube that I watched and realized, oh, this is what's going on with me.
So Morgan, let me ask you this. How long were you hurt for?
So I'm more than 3 years away from my acute hitting, and I still have symptoms. I'm fully functional. I find lots of joy in life. I'm able to be present for my children. Lots of things that I wasn't able to do in the beginning, especially that first year. But I still have tinnitus. I still have what I call sleep waves. So there's times where I'm not sleeping as great. In ways that I attribute to my withdrawal injury. But yeah, so a little over years.
Okay. And just briefly, what was the impact that this had on your life? How did it affect your ability to be a mom? How did it affect your relationships, your ability to work? Can you give just a bit of texture as to what an injury like this does to someone?
Yeah. The kind of withdrawal that I endured affects every aspect of your life. So I had to, take off work. My family depends on my income. So we had to take a second mortgage out on our home. I refused to be alone with my children for a while. We had to have family come and help get them ready and take them to school and daycare. I was couchbound for a while. I couldn't read a bedtime story to my children. I was very cognitively impaired. I loaded laundry in my dishwasher. I was just, I had incredible brain fog, and just the cognitive impairments were really bad. It put a huge strain on my marriage. I have a really supportive husband, but I did not treat him well. I had really horrific rage. Just, in general, emotional ability, I think is pretty common in this. The very essence of who I was, I've spent 3 years trying to piece who I am back together. So just on every level and every aspect, this has been all consuming.
Mm-hmm. So here you are today. You're through the worst of it now. You've started ACE. I covered a lot of it at the beginning. The importance of this reporting drive. Is there anything else that I missed, Morgan? Is there any part of ACE and what you do and this current point in time where we are that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. You did a great job summarizing it, Josef. I'm not sure I have much to add, but this is going to open the door, I think, for a lot of other things. And we saw this with Vic, right? They successfully contributed to the 2020 boxed warning, and then there were some lawsuits that came after, and I think it's becoming more recognized. We've seen some really big pieces. We saw a Wall Street Journal piece that was just, I thought, excellent reporting. And there's something for patients, when they go and see their doctor, because I don't think it's going to stop all the injuries from happening, but I do think that's going to change eventually, slowly, and people can go into their doctors with something to show them. I wish I had something to show my doctor, right, when this all happened, and when he told me it was just my depression, which was really ridiculous, for me to kind of have this rebuttal with supported by the prescribing information. So I think it's going to open the door for a lot of other things. Maybe, a lot of folks need disability in this. I think it's going to help with that, it being kind of a recordable medical issue. And then also, I know something that we all need so badly in this space for those who have fortunately found the withdrawal space, validation. I think every single person wants that, because we're so gaslit by the world around us when this happens. So this is our chance to get the validation that we so deserve.
Okay. Morgan, thank you so much for the work you do and coming on and sharing your story. Everybody, if this has happened to you and you haven't done this yet, link below this video, submit a report. It'll take you 5 minutes, but in that 5 minutes, you could change someone's life. You could save them from 3 years of insanity, problems with their kids, their spouse, all of this stuff. It really is in your hands. Your voice makes a difference. Submit your report, please.